When you joined Horace Silver, you had been listening to his music like all of us had. What was it like actually playing that music with the man himself?
Um, well, that's a great question, Brett, and it's difficult to summarize. I can say that my experience was so similar to everything I've heard thus as far as the learning aspects. Um, I think maybe I'm going to admit something that's silly, but when I was a teenager and first thinking about playing music, I used to play along with records. This is before play along records. I mean, actual records. So I'd play along with well, Dr. Ridley, for example. I try to copy his notes. I didn't really know anything about harmony or chords or anything, but I just tried to learn by ear, and I'd copy the notes that the other bass players were playing. Uh, and at one point, I remember I was in front of this. My mother had a bureau with a full-length mirror on it, and I looked in the mirror and I tried to imagine like a fantasy that I was playing with Horace Silver. And it was fun because I knew I would never do it. I knew that that was just a dream and it would never happen. But it was fun to pretend. So when I was up there with him, half the time I couldn't tell whether I was dreaming or whether I was with him. But I will say, here's one. My learning thing with him started right at the audition because he called me. I was in Washington, D.C. I think he had gotten my number from Harold White, actually. And he called me. I was doing a gig down there with Eddie Jefferson. And Horace invited me to audition up at Lynn Oliver's like everybody else. But so what I did was when I got home, I had a lot of his records, but I bought every record I didn't already have. And I listened to the records for 18 hours a day for 3 weeks and played along with them. So when I went to the audition, I'll never forget this. There were 9 bass players sitting there. And you're all in the same room while each guy auditions. You're all listening to each other. The truth is, there were bass players there that were better players than me. But I think I was the best prepared. And I knew all of his arrangements and all of the bass lines and all that stuff from memory, just from by ear. And there were actually guys at the audition, I couldn't believe it, but he'd ask them to play a song for my father, and they were digging around for the chart, try to find the chart so they could read it. And these were very good players. But I think they felt that because they were very good, they'd just walk in and get the gig. So I learned right away that preparation and perspiration is 90% of what they call talent.
Yeah.
Talent is kind of like the icing on the cake, but it's the work that really makes it happen. So I don't know that I answered your question, but playing with him was a learning experience at every moment, at every tune, every groove, and every comment. What was really great at that time in the band and in other bands was we all shared information. Those road trips were long in those days because you travel through Europe by train and you'd have hours, even overnights, going from one city to the other to just talk about the music. And, the helpful hints that you would get from the Harold Whites and you'd get from Horace and you'd get from the Larry Schneiders and the Bob Bergs and all that. I mean, and guys did it in a really helpful, constructive, and very loving kind of way. So they wanted me to get better. And that blew me away. It wasn't because they needed a good bass player. It was because they wanted me to grow. And we all shared, and it was really a great experience. And I got spoiled because Horace was the first. I had worked on other bands, but he was the first extended gig I had with one band leader, and it was so great to work with him that I assumed that's what this business is. And then I came to find out later that it's lots of different things, and it's not always necessarily so positive. but
Yeah.
I assumed that was the stuff. Yeah, for John said a very interesting word, a couple, well, more than one, but he said formative, and he used words like profound and impact, and I have to say that experience really shaped my musical personality, I think.